by Becky.
So, hi everyone, my name is Becky. I'm a graduate manufacturing engineer at MBDA. So today we've got a couple of things that we're going to take you through, have a look at the pre-task that you've done, talk you through our company and the work that Ben and I do there, and then we'll have a chat to you about our recruitment process, in particular our apprenticeships as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Just bear with me a second. Hopefully you will all be able to see this. And can everybody see that okay? Ben, is that coming through?
Yep.
Yeah, brilliant. So first up, we're going to start by talking you through the pre-task very quickly. So we sent it through to you of why do you think our missiles are all different shapes and sizes? So just a reminder that that's the pre-task. We're not going to do it now. What we're going to do is we'll ask for answers later. So if you haven't had a chance to think about that one yet, now's your chance to do that. So just a quick one. Who out of you listening has heard of MBDA before this session? What do you know about us? So feel free to pop your answers in the chat or come off mute. I can't see the chat when I'm sharing screens. So Ben, if you could let us know what some of the responses are. So who has heard of MBDA before this session and what do you know about us?
No one knows anything so far, Becky.
Okay. Right, well, we'll move on to the next one. But what I'd say is listen up because we've got some info to tell you. So first things first, we were actually in 2 movies. So 2 of the products that we make as MBDA missile systems were featured in the movies. So Kingsman, The Secret Service, which I'm guessing quite a few of you have seen, and also the Bond film No Time to Die. So you can see the pictures on the screen of where our products were featured. So just a little bit of information for you there. So I'm now going to hand over to Ben, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about who we are and what we actually do.
Okay, thank you. So MBDA isn't exactly a household name. A lot of people won't have heard of us, but the chances are you've heard of our parent companies. So Airbus, BAE Systems and Leonardo are the 3 companies that own us. So we're not a government organisation. We are a private company that are owned by those companies. And obviously we're MBDA Missile Systems, so we make missiles and missile systems. It's actually a European company that's basically different companies across Europe have merged together over time to create MBDA, which you can see there, some of the names as it's changed through times until it became MBDA back in 2001. Okay, if you want to go to the next slide, Becky. So in terms of the size of the company, the best thing to do is probably talk about some of the statistics behind it. So these are the figures from 2018. So as a company, we got 4 billion euros worth of orders. So that's when a customer comes to us and places an order to say, I want X amount of this product. So we had 4 billion euros of orders. We made 3.2 billion euros in revenue. So that's basically once we've delivered a product to our customer, they pay us for it. And that's the revenue. And therefore our backlog at the minute is 17.4 billion euros. So that's all the things that customers have ordered that we haven't delivered yet. So that's how much work we've got outstanding. So 17.4 billion euros. So it's reasonable sized numbers, quite big numbers. In terms of employees, we've got well over 11,000 employees across the world, with obviously our biggest sites being in France and the UK. In terms of the market share, so we supply 50% of the European market of complex weapons, so missiles and missile systems. and it equates to about 21% globally is what our market share is. So quite big in the world of complex weapons. Okay. So for the UK, we have 4 main sites. The main one, our headquarters for the UK being Stevenage, where the vast majority of our employees are. That's where all our management, human resources, research and development, all our design teams and stuff are based. We have Bristol, which is where sort of our software and our systems engineering is done, and Bolton, which is our manufacturing site for the UK. So Greater Manchester actually has the manufacturing site for the UK's missiles, and you probably didn't even hear of it.
Okay, so now you've had a bit of an intro to who we are and what we do, we're going to move on to the pre-task. So again, feel free to come off mute and speak, or pop your answers in the chat and Ben will read them out. Why do you think our missiles are all different shapes and sizes? So have a...
MBDA's missiles are all in different shapes and sizes because they're optimized for different tasks. So for example, the Brimstone missile is optimized for air-to-ground, and they use the Typhoon.
Nice. Someone's done the research. Good. Any other points?
So we've had someone say aerodynamics, different ranges, different tasks.
Yeah, definitely. So you've pretty much covered the main bits, to be honest there. So the main reasons that our missiles are different shapes and sizes is the target, so the target that they're aiming to hit, the launch platform, so whether they're air launched, ground launched, or sea launched, and the scenario. So within scenario, we're looking at things like the range, so the distance it has to travel, climate and weather conditions, obviously where in the world it's being used, it's going to have different climates, and that could affect how it's used. And yeah, aerodynamics absolutely comes into it as well. So in terms of the stuff that you're learning at school, if you think of your SUVAT equations in maths and physics, and when you're looking at the time it takes something to reach somewhere, its acceleration, all that sort of thing, that's all affected by the size and the shape and the aerodynamics of the missile. So yeah, some really good thoughts on that pre-task there. So now back to Ben, who's going to give you a little bit more information on the sectors that we work across.
Okay, so tying into what we were saying there about the uses and why we have different shapes and sizes, we as a company offer solutions for all 4 of the main market sectors, which are maritime superiority, so anything being used out at sea, which can still be air launched if it was, say, an anti-ship weapon. Air dominance, so anything for use in the air. Ground-based air defence, which obviously is protection from the air, but from a ground asset. And then battlefield engagement, which is much more your man-portable equipment that you would take out with you. So we offer solutions in all those areas for the different armed forces. So this is quite a complex picture, so I won't run through all of it, but these are all the different capabilities and technologies that we have at MBDA as a company. So as you can imagine, defence industry is quite cutting edge. We're always looking at new technologies and things that we can use in our products, because obviously by default our product has to be better than other products around. So you see there some of the things where stealth engineering, obviously we have warhead technology. If you read, if you have a look through that, there's all kinds of different aspects that go into making a missile system. It's not as simple as putting a few bits together with an explosive in the front and a rocket motor at the back. There's a lot of different cutting edge technologies that go into creating a missile system that works the best it can.
Yep, so as Ben mentioned earlier, our Bolton site covers all our manufacturing and production. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that today. So that's where both myself and Ben are based. So within the UK, we've got a mix of different manufacturing capabilities. So our manufacturing centre of excellence essentially is in Bolton. So hopefully you're all familiar with that. We've got a brand new facility, well, I say brand new, a new facility that was built for us a couple of years ago there. Huge production line, storage facilities and all that sort of thing. And then further down south, we've got manufacturing capability as well. So we do inert build at Bolton, so there's no explosives on site. But at Henlow is where our live build is done. And we've also got trial sites, so experimentation and test at Bedford, and then Stevenage, which, as we mentioned, is our main headquarters in the UK. They have some development work down there as well. So there is manufacturing capability across the UK for MBDA, but our main centre is our Bolton site. So bit of a confusing image on the screen, but essentially that is an overview of our manufacturing shop floor at Bolton. So just an example of all the different technologies that we have available. So we've got an ESS, which is environmental stress screening chamber. So that's where we do a lot of environmental testing for temperature, climate, that sort of thing on our missiles. We've got our PEX line, so that's for our circuit card assemblies, and that's a semi-automated line. So they're using a lot of robotics in that area, which I'll come on to later. And we've also got two clean rooms now, actually, which is where we do a lot of the hands-on, more difficult work on our seeker systems. So lots going on technology-wise at the Bolton site. So as I kind of mentioned on the previous slide, we've got our circuit card assembly area, which is this industrial electronics and microwave technologies in the bottom left-hand corner. So hopefully some of you might get a chance to visit the site in the future as part of a visit day or work experience, for example, or if you decide to apply for one of our apprenticeship schemes. And if you do come in, you'll get to see just some of the absolutely tiny components that we put on our circuit cards. Which is why that we're having to use robotics, because some of them are too small to be seen properly without a magnifying glass. We've also got lots going on with our seekers and data links. Lots of fancy electronics and software going on there as well. So some really interesting stuff. And then we're also looking at the future of manufacturing as well. So a lot of you have probably heard of things like simulation, virtual reality, maybe some of the games that you've seen people playing on VR. That's not just used for gaming. We actually use that on site as well. So when we've got new production lines or new areas being set up, we will use virtual reality and simulation to map out our shop floor. So you can see the image, the top left of the screen, is not a photograph. It's actually VR simulation of our shop floor, and the top right is using a simulation software to basically map out the benches and the people and make sure that we've got enough space. As I mentioned earlier, we're also using robots, so particularly in the areas that are undergoing a lot of high volume quick production, we're using robots as part of that. One of which is a cobot, which is a collaborative robot. So the idea is that it's the human and the robot working together. So quite often you'll find that maybe you're doing a task and you think, oh, I could really do with another pair of hands here. That's where the robot comes in. But they are set up so that there's no issues if you end up damaging or hurting yourself, because it's got sensors on to make sure if the robot comes close to your hand, it stops. So it's a really good way of increasing our capability and capacity, all in the kind of aiming for rapid development and production. So like it says on the screen there, the future of manufacturing requires connectivity, automation, agility, and efficiency. So looking at how we can use new software and upcoming software like simulation, virtual reality, and robotics to increase our productivity within manufacturing. So that kind of covers the company as a whole and what we specifically do at the Bolton site. We're going to open it up for questions at the end, so you can ask us anything you want to around that. But now I'm going to pass back to Ben, who's going to talk you through our early careers programs and the opportunities available at MBDA.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, like Becky said, we'll do some questions at the end, and any questions that you do have, whether it's about our products, our careers, manufacturing, MBDA, anything, you know, we can answer any that we can when we get to the end. So do be thinking of any questions and make a note of them, and we will go through them. There's no such thing as a stupid question. If you thought of it, there'll be other people that will have. So it's always worth asking. Okay, so a little bit about our early careers programs. One thing I will say is we're nothing special as a company. So the stuff I'm going to tell you in this section is worth remembering, worth making a note of, because it will apply to a lot of companies. So it's good advice to take forward. Okay. So you'll see a few slides that look like this as I go through our different schemes that we offer. So it all comes under what's called the ECP program, so the Early Careers program. In theory, they all work the same way in terms of you would start in September. So it follows in the school years. You'd finish school or college or university, and then you'd join the company in September after the summer holidays. So for graduate program, it's a 2-year program in some either engineering functions or business functions. Starting salaries $26,500 a year, and basically it works where you do 4 6-month placements while you're on your scheme, getting a feel for different areas in the company. And to get in that, it's a 2-2 in your related degree. Okay, undergraduate works a similar way, except it's for people that are currently at university, so partway through their studies. They have a year out where they work at a company for 10 months. Works in a similar way, except generally it's just one single placement for the 10 months. Okay. And then summer placements, again, for people that are at university that are partway through their studies, during those summer holidays, working for 10 to 12 weeks. Same kind of thing. Obviously, you'd just be in the one placement for those 12 weeks. So then our apprenticeships. So the sort of non-university route, or at least the non-self-university route. To start with, we've got our engineering apprenticeship. So the apprenticeship still, like I say, would start in September. And it's a 4-year program. So for Bolton, our site, it's in the manufacturing engineering function. At our other sites, they have different functions that do it, but it's for the manufacturing engineering function for us. The starting salary of $14,500 a year, and you get a pay rise up to £4,000 each year while you're on your scheme. Entry requirements for that is 120 UCAS points. So it can be from A levels or a BTEC equivalent. A levels have to include maths and a science subject, ideally chemistry or physics. And the way it works on your scheme is you'll do 3 to 6 month long placements in basically different teams around the site to get a feel for different areas, learn all your skills ready for when you finish your time. And like I say, that's degree sponsored. So you actually get a BN just part of it in mechanical engineering. That's all paid for, and it works on day release. So you do 4 days a week in work, and then you do 1 day a week at university studying for a degree. Our other apprenticeship is our operations apprenticeship. So this is for people that aren't really interested in carrying on in the world of academia, so going to university and that kind of thing, more hands-on. So works in the same way in terms of its September start, 4-year program. This is in the operations, so manufacturing. Same starting salary, same pay reviews and stuff. Entry requirements difference is you can join after GCSEs for this. So you did 5 GCSEs, including maths, English and science at a 4 or above. And while you're on your scheme, then you'll work towards a HNC and HND in electrical engineering, and you'll also do an electrical engineering MVQ alongside. Placements work the same way, 3 to 6 month long, moving around different parts of the company to get all your different skills and stuff. But like I say, this is the hands-on, so this is the physically building and testing our products that the operations do. Okay, so this is one of the key bits, and like I say, our company is nothing special. So what I'm about to say applies to most places. So this is based on an engineering type apprenticeship, but the vast majority applies to pretty much anything. So I'll start in the bottom right, which is academic success. So when you apply, like I said, I just gave you some entry requirements. You need to meet those entry requirements. So we want to see that you're going to be able to meet those requirements to get the job. After that point, we're not actually that interested in academic success. So if you're sat there thinking, I can only just scrape those grades, I won't get chosen above someone who's got all the top grades, that's completely not true. As long as you meet those minimum requirements, we've set those minimum requirements for a reason. They're the requirements that we believe are required to do that job and the further education as part of the apprenticeship. After that point, it's just a bonus if you can do better. So I'm not saying if you're meeting minimum requirements, don't bother working hard and trying to pass your exams or however your assessments will be with COVID, etc. But still try and achieve your best. But like I say, don't get caught up on it and don't be worried about it. We're looking for other things as well. So if you meet those minimum requirements, we're now looking for other things like interpersonal skills. Like, are you going to work well in a team, work with other people? Are you going to communicate well? Pretty much all jobs require that. And you need to show those off in your application. So on your CV or on your application, give examples as to why you like, that gives evidence for you doing this. Same with the motivation. So motivation and enthusiasm quite linked, but why do you want to work for that company? And not just why do you want to work for that company, why do you want that specific job? One of the common things that people miss off applications is why they want that specific job. So it's all well and good, for example, if I use our company as the example, saying I want to work in the defence industry because it's interesting, it's cutting edge technology. Great, that's good. Like, I want to work for MBDA because it's the biggest complex weapons company in Europe. Great, but you've still not told me why you want an apprenticeship with MBDA or whatever it is. You need to do your homework on why you want this job specifically, because otherwise you're not selling it properly, and it could be taken away that you just want a job in that industry or for that company. You're not really bothered what. So that's a key thing to remember. The enthusiasm, this comes down to your supercurricular activities or even extra if it links in. So what do you do outside of school, outside of college, that shows you're interested in that field? So for engineering, do you watch programs on how things are made? Do you build things or take things apart in your spare time? Do you read engineering type magazines? Are you creative? Do you draw and draw things, design things in your spare time for fun? That kind of thing. You want to be showing off, like, that you're truly interested in the field that you want to go into, because that will really help your application. And then finally, like I say, looking at this from an engineering apprentice point of view, the problem solving skills. Do you have that engineering mindset that says you can approach things in a logical way and help solve problems? So you can see there, most people on their applications will, 80% of their application will be focused on academic success. But if you look on that, it's not 80% of what we look for as a company. So it's all about selling you. You're selling yourself, because we're deciding whether we think you'd work well with us. And you should talk about yourself in your application. Don't just put what you think we want. Talk about yourself. So what you do in your spare time, what you do as hobbies, even if you think it's quite quirky or strange, it probably isn't. It's what makes you you, and that's what we're interested in. If you're somebody that just smashes like the schoolwork, you get really high exam results, but you don't do anything in your spare time, your application makes you seem like all you're bothered about is academic success. And when I'm looking at the application, then thinking, would these be a good fit in my team? Would I get on with them? Would we work well? I have no evidence to suggest that you would be if you focus on academic success. So even if you come up with things that you do in your spare time, it's really helpful. But one thing I would say is, like playing on games on Xbox or PlayStation or whatever, while it is a hobby, don't focus on that on an application as a hobby. Try and link in like why it's interesting. Okay. Okay, so this is the recruitment process that we follow as a company. Again, like I say, this isn't anything special or unique to us. This is quite common. So this is probably what you'd see for a lot of companies. One of the things that we do that some companies do and some companies don't, it's quite split, is the fact that we do a strengths-based assessment centre. So the way it works is you put your application form in, it's all done online. You get invited to do online tests. So they're not complicated tests. In theory, if you're already working at the grades that are good enough to get into the company on those minimum requirements, you should be able to pass the tests. Once you've done that, it basically comes through to the hiring manager of that area. So for manufacturing, that's me. And we go through then and look at everything we've got, application form, online tests, etc., and decide who we want to bring forward to an assessment centre. At the assessment centre then, this is where it's strengths-based. So you've got different activities and an interview to do. It's not as scary as it sounds. You'll find quite often the activities are quite fun. Some are working with other people, some are on your own. And interviews always sort of get a bad reputation, when actually they're not that bad. The whole assessment centre is set up to give you the best ability to sell yourself, basically, to justify why you're the best person for the job. It's not to try and trick you out, catch you out with anything, which is often the way it's seen. I remember when I applied for the job at MBDA, I was nervous. I was trying to come up with answers to any questions that they might try and catch me out with. When I actually went for my interview, it just felt like a chat, like I was just chatting to some people. You're just talking about yourself, what you do. You're basically elaborating on what you've put on your application form. So the more bits you put on the application form, the easier it is for your interview. So like I say, talking about what you do in your spare time, your hobbies, you can then link that into your interview. And it is a chat. The interviewer is trying to give you the best opportunity to sell yourself. We don't want to catch people out. We want everybody to have a good interview so that we choose the right person for the job. So you should never be scared of assessment centres. That's your tool to use against the company, as opposed to the other way around. So like I say, this format is basically how most companies will work. Like I say, ours is strengths based. which means there's less prep you can do in advance. We're actually looking at if you're good at something, but also if you enjoy doing that thing as well. That's the main difference with a strengths-based assessment centre. Okay. Okay, so then a little bit more on the application process. Is I won't read the steps out, but in essence, put the time in with it. Like you'll usually have maximum word counts on these things, and I promise you every single word is read on these applications. So don't think you're having to do all this work for nobody to even look at it. We read every single word on every single application. So if you put the time and effort in, we will too, and it shows you have more opportunity to say all the things about you and what you do, and it gives us more opportunity to get to know you through the application form. So take it seriously, but don't get worked up with it. Don't take it too seriously. Like I say, put your hobbies on, what you do. Link it into why the things that you do in your spare time would also make you good at doing the apprenticeship or whatever job it is. Read the question. There's sometimes questions will be written with 2 questions to it. Most applicants will read that first part of the question, answer that, and won't do the second part. You'll find most of the time, if an employer has done those 2-part questions, the bit the employer is interested in is that second part of the question. The first bit is to give you the context to understand what we're trying to ask. The second bit is the bit that we actually want the answers for. So always read the question, and if there's 2 parts to it, make sure you answer both. It's one of those disconnects between people applying and the company reading it. It is like people applying are trying to answer what they think the company want, and the companies don't always make it very clear what they actually want. So always read the question, and then make sure you check it. The odd spelling mistake I wouldn't get worked up with, but it's not too difficult to run spell checker, type it up on a Word document first, and then just paste it in. If you're applying for multiple jobs at the same time, which is totally normal, everybody does it, make sure that you don't reference other companies or other jobs in your application. So of course you're going to take stuff from, if you've written one, you're not going to keep writing one from scratch every time, but make sure that you've tailored it to the specific job and company you're applying for. Don't accidentally paste in an answer that has reference to a completely different company, something like that, because it just shows that you've not actually put any effort in with the application. Okay.
Okay, so that's us done with information that we're sharing with you today. If you have any questions at all about the work we do, mine and Ben's job roles, our career paths, how the recruitment process works, anything like that, just let us know. Feel free to either pop it in the chat or come off mute, and we'll answer as many of your questions as we can.
So
Okay.
Ben,
sorry, go on. I've just seen a question. If you don't mind, that'd be good.
Just going to turn my volume up. Have you worked with Eurofighter Typhoon and the Meteor and Brimstone missiles?
Okay, so as part of my current role, I'm the principal manufacturing engineer for Brimstone 3, so our latest version of the Brimstone missile, and it's still in development because it's the latest version. So I'm going from Brimstone 2 to Brimstone 3, and the last assets I built were trials assets for Eurofighter Typhoon. So as part of a development program, we actually had to do integration work with our platforms. So things like Eurofighter Typhoon, we have to make some development missiles that will then be tested with the typhoon to make sure everything works as you'd expect. So yeah, I've worked with those kind of bits, and I currently am working on them.
And then we just had another one. For the apprenticeships, what specific grades are you looking for?
So for the Ops Apprenticeship, it's the 5 GCSEs, English, including English, Maths and Science, are level 4 or above. For the A-levels one, for the engineering apprenticeship, if you're doing it A-levels, it's based on UCAS points, the 120 UCAS points, obviously including maths and the science. I couldn't tell you exactly like what UCAS points translate directly to from grades, but I'd assume it's somewhere around like the BCC or something like that if I was to speculate.
And then just a question from me, I suppose. Oh, no, there's someone else who's asked one. What would you say is the best and worst parts of your jobs? And I think you can both answer that. Okay.
Best bits for me is working with loads of different people from around the world. I've worked with colleagues from our different NATCOs, so our different countries, and I've worked in the offset team, working with different countries where we're getting parts made in those countries. So that's definitely been the best bit for me, working with those and occasionally getting to travel to work with those people. Worst bit has to be how slow the defence industry can be at times. So the lifespan of a missile is about 30 years. And before that, you'll have probably 10 to 15 years of like concepting, development, contracts, all that kind of stuff. So you could literally spend your entire career on one system. It's not how it works. We have loads of systems on the go all the time, and you change job roles all the time. So it doesn't work like that, but it can be. It's a very slow industry.
Yeah, so for me, kind of like Ben said, actually, one of the best bits for me is the different people that I get to work with. Work with people from all the different sites in the UK, right from people like myself who've just started with the business through to senior managers who've been with the business pretty much their whole careers. And the development opportunities that we get as part of that as well. So I'm a graduate, I'm on the early careers program, and we get loads of different opportunities to network and do training courses, all that sort of thing, which you also get when you're off scheme as well. Worst bit, like with any job, there's always, emails and meetings and admin bits to do. However, I'm quite lucky in that my role, with it being in manufacturing, I spend most of my time interacting with people and speaking to people on the shop floor and that sort of thing, so I can get away from maybe some of the admin stuff that you'd have more of in other roles.
Amazing. And another one, what specific subjects would you do at A-level/university if you wanted to get a job in this field?
Okay, so definitely maths. It may be boring at school. It certainly was for me. I think a lot of it comes down to your teacher at the end of the day. But you need to be able to do maths. And then physics for me is by far the closest related to most engineering subjects as can be. If you have an option to do engineering, if you're doing that kind of thing, then absolutely do that. But maths and physics are your key ones really for a lot of the roles. If you go into university, then an engineering related degree would be good, but you could also do maths and physics. So it's those kind of things. Engineering is just an applied version of those sciences, really.
And then this ties in nicely. How much maths is actually involved in engineering?
So it does depend on your role. I have to say I don't do a huge amount. I'm obviously looking at how we make our products and how to improve that. It's certainly nothing like at school where you're having to learn like first principle type things and like how you work out equations and stuff. in work, in real life, in work, it doesn't work like that. If you need an equation, you Google it. You don't need to know any of that stuff, how it works. It's not as bad as it seems. A lot of the roles you'll see once you get into the real life and work, it's not like maths at school, so it's nowhere near as much.
I think the other thing to add on to that as well is that there is loads of software and programs available to help you with that. And in particular, if there's anything specific that you need to know, you'll likely be taught it as part of your job anyway. So as long as you meet those kind of basic academic requirements and all the extra bits like the enthusiasm and the motivation that Ben mentioned, anything really, really specific you needed for your role, you'll likely be taught it as part of your initial training anyway.
And once qualified, is it a hard field of work to get into?
So in terms of once qualified, so I'll answer it in a couple of different ways just to make sure I answer the question. So when you join the company on an early careers program, it's a permanent job. So you're if you get a job doing an apprenticeship and things like that, you have got a permanent job. It's not just the apprenticeship and finishing. In terms of if the question was meant in a way that once you've got like your GCSEs or your A levels, how easy is it to find an engineering type job? At the minute, it's relatively easy. There's a known skills shortage of engineering in the UK, which basically means there are more engineering jobs than qualified engineers for the UK by a reasonable amount. I don't know the exact number, but it's tens, if not hundreds of thousands. So if you've got those qualifications, there's jobs out there waiting for you. It's one of the nicer positions to be in with engineering.
And then this might be our last question because it is taking us up to 1:45. So does being an air cadet help?
So I'll take that one. So that's one of those examples that Ben was talking about of extracurricular activities that's an ideal thing to mention on your CV, basically. So obviously, if you're an air cadet, it's not guaranteed that you'll get a role, but it's the sort of thing that we're looking for you to mention. So it shows that you've already got that interest in the defence industry. It shows that you're organised enough to have the time to do something outside of school and college. It shows that you can interact with people. And there's something interesting about you as well. So obviously there's loads of different things you can include in that, but being an air cadet is one of the examples of those extracurricular hobbies that we'd say, definitely mention on your application form.
There is another one. There is, so I'm just going to ask it. It isn't the most important thing, but how is the salary at MBDA and engineering in general?
So if you look at statistics, if I start with engineering in general, it's one of the highest paid sort of fields in the UK. So usually behind medicine. It's usually it's certainly in the top 5 pretty much all the time for engineering. So the pay is good. At MBDA, it's about standard. It's about what you'd expect. So I'm a principal manufacturing engineer and I'm on 38 grand a year. And that's probably like quite standard for someone of my level and position in an engineering company. So the pay is good, like as an industry, and MBDA are about the middle of the field for it.
Amazing. I think that's it for this morning's session, guys. But thank you so much for joining National Careers Week 2021, and thanks to everyone that's tuned in and listened. If you do have any questions about careers or apprenticeships across Greater Manchester, then please go to our website, which is gmax apprenticeship.co.uk. I will pop a link in the chat, and there's a live chat function, so you can speak to a member of the team if you've got any questions. That's it. Thanks for joining, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.